Chapter 1. Rachel's Point of View. The door swings open and I am already in the room before I realize it is the wrong one. My phone is against my ear. My assistant is still talking. I cut her off mid-sentence because the woman sitting up in the hospital bed across the room has brown curly hair and eyes and a face I spent 5 years trying to stop seeing in my sleep. Hannah Cole. She is holding a newborn. I do not move. I do not speak. The folder under my arm slides, and I catch it without looking down because my eyes will not leave her face. Hannah stares back at me and her arms pull the baby closer to her chest and she does not say a word, and neither do I, and the silence between us has weight, the specific weight of 5 years of nothing pressing into a single moment. Wrong room, I finally say. My voice comes out flat, professional, the voice I use when I need people to believe I am in control of a situation I am not in control of. Hannah does not respond. I should leave. I know I should leave. I have lawyers waiting on the 4th floor, and an acquisition folder under my arm, and a schedule that does not have a single minute allocated for this. I take one step backward toward the door. Then the baby opens her eyes. I stop, pale blue, almost silver at the edges. I have looked at that color every morning of my life in my own mirror. I know exactly what shade it is, and I know exactly how uncommon it is, and I know with complete certainty that I am not imagining what I am seeing right now. The baby's eyes are my eyes. Hannah. My voice comes out differently this time. What is this? Hannah's jaw tightens. She looks down at the baby and then back up at me, and something moves across her face. Not guilt, not embarrassment. Something older and heavier than either of those things. You need to leave, Rachel. I'm not leaving. This isn't... She stops. Exhales. You weren't supposed to be on this floor. I took a wrong turn. I step further into the room instead of out of it. Hannah, look at me. She does. And what I see in her face is not what I expected after 5 years of silence. I expected cold. I expected distance. I expected the version of Hannah Cole that walked out of our apartment and did not look back. Instead, she looks like someone bracing for impact. How old? I say quietly. Rachel. How old is she? Hannah's throat moves. Her arms tighten around the baby. The baby blinks once, slowly, and those pale blue eyes catch the light from the window, and I feel something shift inside my chest that I have no word for. 3 days, Hannah says. 3 days. I look at the baby. I look at Hannah. I look back at the baby. My mind is running the kind of calculation it runs during acquisitions. Pulling data, cross-referencing, looking for the explanation that makes everything add up. There is no explanation. There is no version of this that adds up. Hannah and I have not been in the same room in 5 years. We have not spoken. We have not exchanged a single message. Whatever this is, whatever those eyes mean, it is not possible. Except it is standing right in front of me, wrapped in white hospital cloth and blinking. I need you to tell me something, I say. Hannah looks at the window, not at me. Hannah, I know what you're going to ask. Then answer it. The room goes quiet. I don't have all the answers yet, she says. I've been trying to figure it out since before she was born. Figure what out? Hannah looks down at the baby. When she looks back up, her voice is lower. The clinic made a mistake, Rachel. At least that's what I thought at first. She pauses. But the records don't match. The donor information doesn't match. And I've been asking questions for 3 weeks and nobody here will give me a straight answer. I stare at her. What kind of mistake? Hannah opens her mouth. A knock lands sharp on the open door behind me. I turn. A doctor in a white coat stands in the doorway holding a tablet, his eyes moving between Hannah and me with an expression that shifts the moment he registers my face. He takes one step back. Ms. Cole, he says carefully, his eyes still on me. I can come back. No. I turn back to Hannah. He can wait. You said the records don't match. I keep my voice low and even. Whose name is on the donor file? The doctor in the doorway does not move. Hannah looks at me for a long moment. Her jaw is set. Her arms are still wrapped around the baby. And when she finally speaks, the words land so quietly, I almost miss them. Rachel, you weren't supposed to find out like this.
Chapter 2. Hannah's Point of View. The moment Rachel walks out, I look down at my daughter's eyes and say out loud to nobody, "What did they do?" Nurse Karen comes back in within 2 minutes. She checks the baby's vitals, writes something on her clipboard, and then pauses at the side of the crib with her head tilted slightly. "She's beautiful," Karen says. "Those eyes are something else." "Thank you." "Unusual colour." Karen smiles and makes another note. "Does it run in your family?" I keep my face completely still. Her donor's family, I think. Karen nods and leaves. I wait until her footsteps disappear down the hall. Then I reach for my phone on the bedside table and pull up the number I have been calling for 3 weeks, the clinic's patient records line. And I press call and put it on speaker, and listen to it ring 9 times before it goes to voicemail. Again. I hang up without leaving a message because I have already left 11 messages and not one of them has been returned. This is not a coincidence anymore. I think about the first time I noticed something was wrong. 31 weeks pregnant, sitting in the clinic's file review room, going through my donor documentation, the way I go through everything, page by page, carefully, because I learned a long time ago that the details other people skip are the ones that matter most. 2 pages were missing from my file. The coordinator smiled and told me they were just administrative background forms. Nothing relevant. She closed the folder before I finished asking my question. So I went back the following week and requested the full file in writing. The same 2 pages were still missing, and there was a third document I had not seen before, a donor cross-reference log with 3 entries blacked out completely. I photographed every page. I filed a formal inquiry with the clinic director. 11 days later, I received a response that answered nothing and redirected me to the hospital's general patient services line. I called that line. They redirected me back to the clinic. I went to the clinic in person at 34 weeks, visibly pregnant, and asked to speak to someone in charge of donor record management. The woman at the front desk made a phone call, put me on hold for 20 minutes, and then told me the records manager was unavailable and would reach out within 48 hours. Nobody reached out. 3 days later, my water broke and I stopped chasing paperwork because I was suddenly doing something significantly more urgent. And now I'm sitting in this hospital bed, 3 days postpartum, staring at my daughter's pale blue eyes. Eyes that look nothing like mine. Eyes that look nothing like any donor description in the incomplete file I was given. And Rachel Morgan just walked through my door by accident and froze the moment she saw my baby's face. Rachel, whose eyes are that exact colour. Rachel, whose donor records I never saw because they were blacked out. I look down at my daughter and the memory comes before I can stop it. Our first apartment. The kitchen so small we bumped into each other every single morning without fail. Rachel standing at the counter in one of my oversized shirts, already reading emails at 6 a.m., one hand wrapped around her coffee mug. I used to steal that mug just to watch her look up from her phone. She would give me exactly 3 seconds of irritation before the corner of her mouth moved. She never fully smiled before 8 a.m., but she always almost smiled for me. I told her once on a late-night drive home that I wanted to build something permanent with her. A life, a family, something that belonged to both of us. She had kept her eyes on the road and reached across and taken my hand without saying a word. At the time I thought that meant yes. I think now it meant she was terrified. I think now we were both terrified, and neither of us knew how to say it out loud before it was too late. I pick up my phone again. This time I do not call the records line. I open my contacts and scroll to a name I have not used in 8 months. Dr. Carol, the one staff member at the fertility clinic who ever seemed genuinely uncomfortable when I asked questions. She gave me her personal number during my 2nd trimester and told me to use it if anything felt off. At the time I thought she was being professionally cautious. Right now I think she was warning me. It rings twice before she picks up. Hannah. Her voice is low, careful, like she is aware of who might be nearby. I heard you delivered. 3 days ago, healthy girl. Good, that's good. A pause. Is everything okay? I need you to tell me something, and I need you to be straight with me. Silence on the line. Long enough that I pull the phone away from my ear to check the call is still connected. Dr. Carol. You should come in, she says quietly. Not to the clinic. Somewhere else. There are things in your file that I cannot discuss over the phone. My hand tightens around the phone. What kind of things? Hannah. Another pause. Shorter this time, but heavier. The donor cross-reference entries that were redacted in your file. She stops, exhales. They weren't redacted by the records department. Then who redacted them? The door to my room opens. I look up fast. It is not Rachel. It is a different nurse, young, carrying a fresh set of blankets, who smiles at me and sets them on the chair by the window and walks back out without a word. I press the phone closer to my ear. Dr. Carroll, who redacted those entries? Someone above the records department. Her voice drops lower. Someone who knew what those entries contained and did not want them connected to your file. What do they contain? She does not answer immediately. Down the hall, I hear footsteps. Measured. Deliberate. The specific rhythm of someone who walks like every step is a decision. I know that walk. I spent 3 years falling asleep to the sound of that walk coming through our front door at night. I spent 3 years knowing exactly what mood Rachel was in before she reached the bedroom just by the weight and pace of her steps. Confident when a deal closed. Quieter when something troubled her. And this, steady, unhurried, certain. This was the walk she used when she had already made up her mind about something and was simply moving toward the conclusion. I have known that walk for 5 years. I have to go, Dr. Carroll says. Come find me. Don't call this number again. The line goes dead. The footsteps stop outside my door. And before I can process a single word Dr. Carroll just said to me, Rachel Morgan steps back into my room, holding a document I recognize instantly. The standard form St. Alden uses for genetic testing authorization. Already signed on the bottom line, her eyes finding mine across the room with an expression that is no longer shock. It is certainty. I already ordered the test, she says quietly. I need you to do the same.
Chapter 3. Rachel's Point of View. Hannah's signed copy of the genetic testing authorization form lands on the conference table at 7:43 in the morning, and I do not look at it for a full minute because I already know what it means. I pick it up, read it once, set it down. Then I call my lead counsel. I need everything Vantage Reproductive Health Group has filed with this hospital in the last 7 years, I say. Contracts, audits, amendments, all of it. The acquisition review doesn't require a full audit pull, Rachel. I know what it requires. How fast? 48 hours minimum. You have 24? Start with the consent verification logs. I hang up and open the acquisition file on my laptop. Not the summary my team prepared, the original filings. By 11 a.m., I have flagged 9 discrepancies. Donor record counts that don't match across documents filed in the same quarter. I print everything and take it to Hannah's room. She is feeding the baby when I walk in. She looks up. You could knock. The door was open. I pull the chair from the corner, sit down, and put the printed pages on the edge of the mattress between us. I need you to look at these. Rachel, wow. I'm not here as your ex. I'm here as the person whose firm is about to hand $140 million to the company that runs this clinic. I tap the top page. 14 months of missing consent verification entries. Were you a patient here during that window? Hannah looks at the page, then at me. When did you pull this? This morning. Answer the question. Yes, she says. I was. When did you start treatment? 2 years ago. 2 years ago falls directly inside the gap. I lean back in the chair and look at her. Did they ever give you a complete donor file? No. Did you push for one? For 3 months straight. I got redirected every single time. Her voice sharpens. And before you ask me why I didn't push harder, don't. I wasn't going to. Yes, you were. I can tell by the way your voice drops when you think someone has missed something obvious. She shifts the baby against her shoulder. It used to drive me insane. The room goes quiet. Neither of us moves. I set up a meeting with the clinic's records director at 2 o'clock. I say, I need you there. They won't talk with me in the room. They will talk with you in the room because I will be asking the questions. I stand. I'll have someone bring a wheelchair. I can walk. You delivered 3 days ago. I can walk, Rachel. I look at her. She looks back at me. 2 o'clock, I say, and I leave before either of us says something else. The meeting lasts 11 minutes. The records director sits across the table from us, opens a folder, closes it, opens it again, and then looks between Hannah and me and says he needs to consult with legal counsel before continuing any further discussion. Then he stands up and walks out. Hannah and I sit at the conference table in silence after the door closes. That, Hannah says, is not what innocent people do. I'm already on my phone. I need a forensic audit of Vantage Reproductive Health Group's full donor record management system, I tell my counsel. Full scope. Today. Rachel, that escalates the entire acquisition timeline. I know what it does. Today. I hang up and open the digital acquisition file on my laptop and run a search on the Donor Record Archive Index. The results load in 40 seconds. I read them once, then again. The Donor Record Archive contains 2 separate file sets for the same donors across the same time period, 2 versions of the same records. One filed with the hospital for compliance review, one stored in an internal directory that was never included in any document my due diligence team reviewed across 4 months of acquisition work. This was not a filing error. Someone built a second set of records and made sure only one version was ever seen by anyone looking from the outside. I closed the laptop and turned to Hannah. Did Dr. Carroll ever mention a second record system to you? Hannah's eyes sharpen immediately. No. Why? Because one exists. I turn the laptop toward her and watch her face as she reads the screen. Her jaw tightens. Her hand still's on the baby's back. How long has this been running? She asks. I don't know yet. Rachel. She looks up at me. If this goes back further than my treatment window, I know. Then this isn't just my file. This is dozens of people, maybe more. I know, Hannah. She stares at me. For a moment, she looks exactly the way she used to look in our apartment when something made her angry enough to stop being careful about it. Jaw set, eyes direct, every careful layer stripped away. What are you going to do? She asks. I pick up my phone and dial the one person outside this building I trust completely. She picks up on the second ring. I need to know, I say, how someone permanently alters medical donor records without triggering a single audit flag across 7 years. Silence on the line. Then, Rachel, how deep does this go? I'm about to find out.
Chapter 4. Hannah's Point of View. The DNA swab kit arrives at 6 in the morning, and I do it myself before Nurse Karen comes in because I do not want anyone in this building watching me. I label it, seal it, set it on the bedside table. Then I text Dr. Carroll. 3 words, where and when. Her response comes in under a minute. Coffee shop on Mercer. Tomorrow. 9 a.m. Come alone. I screenshot it and pick up my notebook. 41 pages of every question I asked the clinic and every non-answer I received since week 31. I flip to the back and start a new entry. The records director walking out yesterday. The 2 file systems Rachel found. The way Rachel's face looked when she turned that laptop toward me. A knock on the open door pulls me out of my notes. I look up. A woman I have never seen before stands in the doorway. Dark coat. Hospital visitor badge. She looks both ways down the hall before she steps inside and closes the door behind her. Nobody who is here for a normal reason closes the door first. Hannah Cole, she says. Who are you? My name is Tessa. No last name. I worked in Vantage's Donor Records division for 4 years. I left 8 months ago because I was asked to do something I refused to do. What were you asked to do? Retroactively amend donor consent documentation across a specific patient file group. She reaches into her coat and puts a folded envelope on the edge of my bed. I kept copies before I left. I have been waiting for someone to start asking the right questions. How did you know I was asking? Dr. Carroll told me. She glances at the door. She said Rachel Morgan's firm is running a forensic audit. Is that true? As of yesterday. Tessa nods. Then you need to see what is in that envelope before the audit team does. Because what is in there is going to change everything Rachel thinks she is investigating. I reach for the envelope. Before I open it, my phone buzzes on the table. Lab notification. Results ready for authorized recipient pickup. I look at Tessa. I look at the envelope. I look at my daughter in the crib with those pale blue eyes closed. I open the envelope. Inside is a single printed document. A donor cross-reference record. The same type I had been staring at for 3 months with thick black redactions across every key field. Except this version has no redactions. Every entry fully visible. Every name, every date, every authorization signature. I find my treatment file number in the third column. I follow the row across to the donor identifier field. I stop breathing. Rachel E. Morgan. Tessa. My voice comes out steadier than I feel. How many other patient files have her name in the donor field? Tessa looks at me carefully. 11 that I documented before I left. Possibly more after. 11. I set the document down. And nobody flagged this? It was flagged internally. That is why the records were amended. Someone above the records division made a decision that the original documentation needed to disappear. Who? That is what I could not find before they pushed me out. She pulls her coat tighter. But whoever it was had enough authority to access the consent verification system and enough reason to make sure nobody connected the donor name to the patient files. The door opens. Rachel walks in with her laptop under her arm and a coffee in each hand, and stops the moment she sees Tessa standing in the middle of the room. Her eyes move from Tessa to me, to the document on the mattress, and back to Tessa. Who is this? Rachel says. Her name is Tessa, I say. She used to work in Vantage's records division. I pick up the document and hold it out toward Rachel. And you need to read what she brought me. Rachel sets both coffees on the bedside table. She takes the document. She reads it. I watch her face the way I used to watch it across our kitchen table when she was working through something that did not add up. Completely still, eyes moving, jaw set. She gets to the third column. She stops. She reads it again. This is my name, she says. Yes. This is my donor identifier. Yes, Rachel. She looks up at me. Something moves across her face that she does not try to control and does not try to hide, and in 5 years of knowing her, I have seen that happen exactly twice. How many files? She says to Tessa. 11 confirmed. Rachel looks at Tessa. So somewhere out there are 11 or more children biologically connected to me, and nobody told me. Nobody asked me. Nobody said a single word. Rachel sets the document down on the mattress. She picks up her phone and dials. I need you to halt the forensic audit immediately, she says when the line connects. Do not touch the donor record archive until I get there. Lock the directory. Nobody accesses it without me in the room. She hangs up and looks at me. My phone buzzes again on the table. The same lab notification. I pick it up and open the results portal and enter my access code and wait. The results load. I read them once. Twice. The baby is biologically connected to Rachel. Not possibly. Not probably. Confirmed. I look up. Rachel is already watching my face. She already knows. I can tell by the way she has gone completely still with her coffee halfway to her mouth and her eyes on mine and every carefully constructed wall she has built over the last 5 years, showing the first real crack. Rachel, I say quietly. I know, she says.
Chapter 5. Rachel's point of view. I find the donation records at 2 a.m. I had called my private records manager at 10 p.m. and told her I needed everything. Medical, financial, philanthropic contributions, every document I signed between 7 and 10 years ago. She couriered it to the hospital within 3 hours. I pull a single page from the envelope and read it twice. Horizon Reproductive Health Initiative, a philanthropic donor program. I signed up 8 years ago at a charity gala my firm sponsored. I remember the night. I remember writing the check. I remember thinking I was helping women who could not afford fertility treatment access donor resources. I did not read every line of every form. I read them now. Clause 7. Subsection C. Buried so deep and worded so carefully that anyone reading quickly would miss it entirely. A provision allowing the program's affiliated clinical partners to utilize donated biological material across their active patient networks at the discretion of the program's medical board, affiliated clinical partners. I pull up Vantage's corporate registration on my laptop. I scroll to the founding board. The third name is the same person listed as medical board chair of the Horizon Initiative. The same person. I call Hannah. She picks up on the second ring. It is 2 a.m, Rachel. I know. I found how they did it. I look at the page on the table. 8 years ago, I donated through Horizon. I thought it was a general charity pool. It wasn't. Vantage was a clinical partner. My donation went straight into their active network, and the consent clause I signed gave them authorization to use it across multiple patients without notifying me individually. Silence. Hannah. I heard you, she says. So they had legal cover. On paper, based on a clause buried in a form nobody reads carefully at a charity gala. I pause. But the altered records mean they knew the legal cover wasn't clean. If it was clean, they wouldn't have needed to falsify anything. They altered the records because the consent clause wouldn't hold up under scrutiny, she says. Exactly. They used a legal loophole and then covered their tracks when they realized the loophole had holes. So this was never just a mistake, Hannah says. They knew. They knew the whole time. Yes. A long silence. Rachel, she says. Why did you donate? 8 years ago. Why did you do it? I look at the date on the participation agreement. 8 years ago. 2 years before Hannah and I ever met. Because someone I knew was going through fertility treatment and couldn't afford it, I say. I wanted to do something that mattered. Hannah is quiet. Why did you seek treatment? I ask. 2 years ago. Alone. The silence stretches long enough that I think she's not going to answer. Because I wanted a family, she says, and I had spent long enough waiting for the right time and the right person. So I stopped waiting. Neither of us says anything after that. The conference room is completely silent. I'm looking at a piece of paper that connects us across 8 years and 2 separate decisions neither of us knew were linked, and I do not have a single word for what that feels like. My phone buzzes. Another call coming in. My lead counsel. I will call you tomorrow, I tell Hannah. Rachel. Her voice stops me before I switch over. Be careful with what you do with that document. If they find out you have it. They won't, I switch lines. Talk to me. Someone accessed the sealed donor record archive overnight, my counsel says. Her voice is tight. After you had it locked. I stand up from the table. Who? The access log shows internal credentials, but the credentials belong to an employee who left Vantage 14 months ago. Someone used a dead credential to get into a sealed archive in the middle of a forensic audit. Yes, and Rachel, 3 files were accessed. Not copied, not downloaded. She pauses. Deleted. Which files? She reads me the numbers. The third one is Hannah's. I'm already moving toward the door. Get security on that archive right now. Nobody in or out without my physical authorization. I hang up and dial Hannah back. She picks up before the first ring finishes. They deleted your file, I say. Someone got into the archive tonight and deleted your records. A beat of silence. Then, so they know we have Tessa's documents. Yes. Which means they know we can prove what the original said. Yes. Rachel. Her voice shifts, quieter, harder. This was never a mistake they were trying to fix. This was a decision someone made and has been protecting ever since. I know. So who made it? I look down the empty hospital corridor. Somewhere in this building or connected to it, someone just tried to erase the evidence that my name was ever in Hannah's file. Someone with enough access, and enough reason, and enough to lose that they moved in the middle of the night while a forensic audit was actively running. That is not panic. That is coordination. I don't know yet, I say, but they just made their first mistake. What mistake? They moved, I say, which means they're scared, and scared people always move too fast and leave something behind.
Chapter 6. Hannah's Point of View. The lawyer walks into my room at 8 in the morning without knocking and sets a business card on my bedside table. Ms. Cole, my name is Gerald Frost. I represent Vantage Reproductive Health Group. My clients believe there is some confusion surrounding your treatment records, and they would like to resolve it quietly before it becomes complicated for everyone involved. I look at the card, then at him. Get out of my room. Ms. Cole. I am 4 days postpartum and you walked in here without an invitation. I reach for my phone. You have 10 seconds. He picks up his card and leaves. I call Rachel before he is off the floor. A lawyer just left my room, Gerald Frost. Vantage sent him. I know. He tried my conference room first. Security removed him. Her voice is already moving. Don't speak to anyone from Vantage without me present. Nobody. Not lawyers, not administrators, not anyone who works for them. Understood. I pause. They're moving fast, Rachel. So are we. Dear lovely viewers, have you ever had someone show up and try to make a serious problem disappear by calling it a misunderstanding? Drop it in the comments because the look on that lawyer's face when I told him to leave is something I will not forget. Tessa stops returning my calls by noon. I try her 3 times. Straight to voicemail. I text Dr. Carroll. 4 words come back. Cannot talk right now. I call Rachel immediately. Tessa has gone quiet, I say. Since this morning. Right around the same time Frost showed up. They got to her, Rachel says, or scared her enough that she went underground. Dr. Carroll is pulling back too. Hannah, the documents Tessa gave you, where are they? My room. Photograph every page right now and send them to my personal email, not the hospital server, my personal account. I reach for the envelope and start photographing immediately. Already sending. Good. I'm forwarding copies to 2 secure locations outside this building the moment they arrive. A pause. I need to show you something. I'm coming to your room. She arrives in 4 minutes, closes the door, opens her laptop and turns the screen toward me without a word. An internal Vantage document. A donor classification report. At the top in bold, Tier 1, genetic profile, premium classification. Rachel's donor identifier sits at the top of the Tier 1 column. What is this? I ask. Vantage had an internal classification system, Rachel says. Tier 1 donors were premium genetic profiles. No hereditary disease markers. Exceptional health history. High academic and professional indicators. They charged patients 3 times the standard rate to access Tier 1 material. And your profile was Tier 1. Without my knowledge, without my consent, without a single dollar coming back to me. She closes the laptop. 11 patients at premium rates across 2 years runs into the hundreds of thousands, and that is only the patients we currently know about. So this was never just fertility treatment, I say. This was a business they built on your DNA without telling you. Yes. The room goes quiet. Then a knock on my door. Sharp, official. Rachel and I both look up at the same time. Miss Cole? A woman's voice, careful and flat. My name is Sandra Webb. I am with the Department of Child and Family Services. I received a report this morning regarding the welfare of an infant in your care, and I am required by law to conduct an assessment. I do not move. Rachel stands up before I can say a word. She opens the door and looks at Sandra Webb with the specific expression I have seen her use on executives who thought they could walk into her meetings uninvited. Rachel Morgan, she says, I am this patient's legal representative. Before you step into this room, I need the case number, the name of the reporting party, and the specific allegations in writing. I am not required to disclose the reporting party. You are required to provide case documentation before conducting any assessment. I will wait right here. Sandra Webb looks between Rachel and me. She pulls out her tablet and starts typing something and does not look comfortable doing it. I look down at my daughter in my arms, 4 days old, sleeping, completely unaware that someone just tried to use her as leverage. Rachel is still in the doorway blocking Sandra Webb from taking another step forward, and I watch her stand there, straight, still, immovable. And something tightens in my chest that has nothing to do with the investigation. My phone buzzes on the table. Unknown number. No name. 1 line. They classified 17 donor profiles as Tier 1. Rachel Morgan is one of them. And one of the 17 is not a voluntary donor. I read it twice. Then I look up at Rachel. Rachel, I say quietly. She turns from the doorway and looks at my face and reads it immediately, the way she always could before I say a single word. What is it? She says. I hold the phone out toward her. She reads the message. Her hand tightens around my phone. Her jaw sets. And for the first time since she walked through my wrong door 4 days ago, the Ice Queen looks like something has genuinely shaken her. 17, she says quietly. And one of them didn't volunteer, I say. Rachel looks at the message one more time. Then she looks up at me with something in her eyes I have not seen in 5 years. It looks exactly like fear. Chapter 7. Author's Point of View. Hannah is discharged on a Tuesday morning, and Rachel is the one who drives her home. Neither of them planned it that way. Rachel had shown up at 7 a.m. with discharge paperwork she had somehow already reviewed, and an expression that dared anyone in the building to tell her she was overstepping. The nurse who processed Hannah's discharge forms looked between the two of them twice, and wisely said nothing. Now they are in Rachel's car, and the baby is in the back seat and nobody is talking. Hannah speaks first. "You didn't have to do this." "I know." Rachel. "I know, Hannah." Hannah looks out the window and tries to remember the last time she sat in a car with Rachel, and cannot land on a single specific memory, without 3 others following immediately behind it. Late night drives home from events they both attended for different reasons. Rachel always drove. Hannah always controlled the music. They argued about it every single time, and neither of them ever gave in, and somehow that became its own kind of language between them. "The forensic audit team found something this morning," Rachel says. She keeps her eyes on the road. "The 17 Tier 1 profiles. They cross-referenced the classification dates against the donor intake records. And 15 of the 17 were classified within the first year of Vantage's operation. Standard intake process, whatever that means given everything we know. But 2 profiles were classified later. Added to the Tier 1 list after the initial donor pool was already established. Added how much later? 3 years later. My profile was one of the 2 added late." Rachel stops at a red light. "Which means someone made a specific decision 3 years into Vantage's operation to go back and pull my donation from the Horizon Initiative archive and reclassify it as premium." Hannah turns to look at her. "Someone targeted you specifically." "Yes." "That is not an accident or an oversight or a loophole they stumbled into," Hannah says. "Someone looked at your profile, looked at your donation, and made a deliberate choice." "Yes." The light changes. Rachel drives. "The question is, who knew enough about me personally to connect my name to a philanthropic donation I made under a separate organizational umbrella 3 years earlier?" The car goes quiet again. Hannah looks out the window and thinks about the text message from the unknown number. 17 profiles. 1 involuntary donor. She has not told Rachel everything she is thinking about that yet, because she is not ready, and because some part of her is still hoping the conclusion she is moving toward is wrong. They reach Hannah's apartment building, and Rachel pulls into the visitor parking and turns the engine off, and neither of them moves immediately. "I remember this building," Rachel says. "I moved back 2 years ago." "I know." A pause. "I drove past it once, about 18 months ago. I don't know why." Hannah looks at her. Rachel is looking straight ahead through the windshield at the building entrance. Her hands are still on the steering wheel, even though the engine is off. "Why did you drive past it?" Hannah asks. Rachel is quiet for a long moment. "I don't know," she says. "I just did." They get the baby upstairs, and Hannah's apartment is small and warm, and nothing like the place they shared years ago, but somehow it has the same feeling. Books stacked on every surface. 3 half-finished coffee mugs on the kitchen counter. A window above the sink that lets in more light than any window that size has any right to. Rachel stands in the middle of the living room, holding the baby, while Hannah unlocks the bedroom and pulls the portable crib into position. And when she comes back, Rachel is standing very still, looking down at the baby in her arms, with an expression Hannah has never seen on her face before. Not the boardroom expression, not the acquisition expression, not even the cracked open expression from the hospital room. Something quieter than all of those. Something that has no professional name. "She needs a name," Rachel says without looking up. "I know, I've been thinking about it." "Have you decided?" "Not yet." Hannah crosses the room and takes the baby carefully from Rachel's arms, and the transfer is so practiced already, So natural that neither of them notices they are standing close enough that their hands overlap for 3 full seconds before Hannah steps back. Rachel notices. Hannah notices Rachel noticing. Neither says a word. Rachel moves to the kitchen and fills one of the coffee mugs with water from the tap and drinks it standing at the counter and looks out the window above the sink and says quietly, almost to herself, "We used to talk about names." Hannah goes still in the middle of the living room. "What?" "Names for kids." Rachel sets the mug down. "You had a list. You kept it in your phone. You never showed it to me, but I saw the note title once. And you closed the app immediately and pretended you hadn't been looking at it." Hannah stares at the back of Rachel's head. "You never said anything." "I know." "Why not?" Rachel turns around and leans against the counter and looks at Hannah across the small living room with the baby between them and 5 years of silence sitting in the air like something physical. "Because if I said something, it became real," Rachel says, "and if it became real, I had to decide what I wanted. And I already knew what I wanted, and I was terrified of it." The room is completely quiet. Hannah looks at her. Rachel looks back. And for the first time since any of this started, Hannah watches Rachel open her mouth and then close it again and look away, and the moment passes like a window closing. Almost. Almost is the cruelest word in the English language. Hannah sits down on the couch and looks at the baby in her arms and says before she can stop herself, "Do you ever wonder what would have happened if we stayed?" The kitchen is silent. Rachel does not answer immediately. She picks up the coffee mug again and looks out the window, and when she finally speaks, her voice is low and careful and honest in the specific way it only ever gets when she has run out of reasons to be anything else. "Every day," she says. "I wonder every single day."
Chapter 8, Rachel's Point of View. The story breaks on a Wednesday morning, and by 9 a.m., my phone has 112 missed calls. I'm at Hannah's when it hits. I see the notification and call my communications director immediately. She picks up before the first ring finishes. "Rachel, how did it get out?" 4 outlets simultaneously, coordinated release. Someone fed it deliberately. Vantage? That is what doesn't make sense. This story destroys them. Unless they released it themselves to control the narrative before we did. I stand up from the couch. What are they saying? Administrative oversight, isolated incident, full cooperation with investigators. They already issued a statement expressing deep regret and announcing an internal review. An internal review. I almost laugh. Get every board member on a call within the hour. Statement drafted in 20 minutes. My name on it. Not the firm. Me. Rachel, that makes you the face of this personally. I know. Do it. I hang up and Hannah is in the kitchen doorway already reading my face. "It's out," she says. "Yes. How bad?" 4 outlets. Vantage is calling it an oversight and announcing their own internal review. Hannah's jaw tightens. Of course they are. My dear viewers, have you ever watched someone try to get ahead of a scandal they cause by acting like the victim of their own mistake? Tell me in the comments, because what Vantage just did is one of the most calculated moves I have ever seen. The board call happens at 9:30. 11 members, 10 talking at once within the first 2 minutes. Rachel, the acquisition needs to be suspended. The liability exposure alone. We need to distance the firm from any suggestion we knew. Enough. The line goes quiet. We discovered the irregularities during due diligence, and we reported them. That is not liability. That is exactly what responsible acquisition practice looks like. Rachel, Gerald Haynes, the one I have always trusted least. Your personal connection to this case is now public record. Your name is in 2 of the 4 stories this morning. As a donor, as a party with a direct biological connection to one of the affected patients. The board believes your continued involvement creates a conflict of interest we cannot manage. The board believes, I say slowly, that the person who uncovered the fraud should step back from the investigation. The board believes your personal entanglement. My personal entanglement is the reason this fraud was found at all. I stand up. If I had processed this acquisition the way every previous firm did, surface review, sign off, close the deal, Vantage would have been acquired, the records would have stayed buried, and 17 donor profiles, including 1 involuntary donor, would never have seen daylight. Silence. I am not stepping back. If the board wants to remove me, call a formal vote. Until then, I am the lead on this case. I end the call. Hannah is watching me from the doorway. They want you out. They want me quiet. There is a difference. Rachel, I'm not going anywhere. I call my communications director back. The statement, full transparency, reference the forensic audit findings directly. No corporate language. That makes you the face of this story personally. Send it. I hang up. Hannah is still watching me. Something moves across her face that she does not reach for, and neither do I because the baby starts crying from the bedroom, and we both move toward it at the same time and end up standing side by side at the crib before either of us realizes we walked in together. Hannah picks her up, and the crying stops. The three of us are quiet. My phone rings. Firm's general counsel. I pick up immediately. Talk to me. Vantage's legal team filed something 20 minutes ago. What? An emergency petition. His voice is flat. They are arguing the child in Hannah Cole's care represents a contested biological interest. They are requesting the court appoint a guardian ad litem pending a full custody determination. The room goes still. I look at Hannah. She has heard every word. Her face has gone completely white. They are using the baby, I say into the phone. Yes, and Rachel. They are not. Doing this because they want the child. A custody battle means sealed court records. Sealed records mean everything we have found stays buried permanently. I lower the phone. Hannah is looking at me with the baby pressed against her chest, and her eyes asking a question she cannot bring herself to say out loud. I answer it anyway. They are not touching her, I say. I don't care what they file. They are not touching her. Hannah stares at me. Rachel, your board just threatened your position. Vantage just filed a custody petition. If you stay in this, I know what happens if I stay. Your entire career. Hannah. I look at her directly. I know what happens. I am staying anyway. The room is silent. Hannah looks at me for a long moment. Then she looks down at the baby. When she looks back up, her eyes are steady, but her voice is not entirely. Why? She says quietly. I look at the baby. I look at Hannah. And I say the only true thing I have left. Because walking away from you once was enough.
Chapter 9. Hannah's Point of View. The custody petition gets thrown out on a Thursday morning, and Rachel calls me before I see it on the news. It's done, she says. Judge denied the petition. No legal standing. Vantage had nothing. I sit down on the kitchen floor right where I am standing. The baby is in the bouncer 2 feet away, and I look at her and cannot speak for a full 3 seconds. Hannah. Rachel's voice is careful. Are you there? Yes. My voice comes out smaller than I want it to. Yes, I'm here. She's safe. Nobody is touching her. I know. I press my hand flat against the floor and breathe. Thank you, Rachel. I have a meeting with the DA's office in 2 hours. The forensic audit findings are being formally submitted today. Criminal referrals going out to 3 Vantage executives, including the CEO. A pause. It's almost over. I look at the baby. Almost over. I have been waiting for those words for weeks, and now that they are here, I do not feel what I expected to feel. Hi, viewers. Have you ever been so focused on surviving something that you forgot to think about what happens when it ends? Tell me in the comments, because that is exactly where I am right now. Rachel has been here every day for 2 weeks. I did not ask her to. She just kept showing up. 7 a.m. with coffee. Late nights at my kitchen table. 3 a.m. when the baby would not sleep. Rachel appearing in the hallway in yesterday's shirt, having fallen asleep on my couch without either of us discussing whether that was something she should do. I noticed everything and said nothing because saying something meant deciding what it meant. And I was not ready to decide while a custody battle and a criminal investigation were happening simultaneously in my living room. But the custody petition is gone now. The criminal referrals go out today, and I am running out of reasons to keep not deciding. Rachel texts me updates from the DA meeting every 40 minutes. At 2 hours, CEO is cooperating. Naming names, bigger than we thought. At 3 hours, involuntary donor identified. DA handling notification personally. At 4 hours, coming over. Need to tell you something. She arrives at 6 and walks straight to the kitchen and puts both hands flat on the counter. Talk to me, I say. CEO gave a full statement, she says. Confirmed the Tier 1 system. Confirmed the revenue model. Confirmed the altered records. She pauses. He also confirmed that my donor profile was targeted specifically. Someone inside Vantage recognized my name from a professional profile and deliberately pulled my donation from the Horizon archive and reclassified it. Someone who knew who you were. Someone who calculated I would never connect a philanthropic form I signed at a charity gala to a fertility clinic 3 years later. She looks at the counter. They were right. I almost never found out. But you did find out. By accident. She looks up. Hannah, I walked through the wrong door. That is the only reason any of this happened. If I had taken the right corridor that day, I would have finalized the acquisition and never known. You would have raised her alone. You would have spent years wondering about those redacted entries, and nobody would have ever answered you. But you did walk through the wrong door, I say. And you stayed. She does not answer immediately. I come around the counter and stand in front of her. My board voted this morning, she says. Formal censure for conflict of interest. I keep my position, but the Vantage acquisition is being reassigned. Rachel, I knew it was coming. I made the choice anyway. You gave up the acquisition. I gave up a deal. It is not the same thing. The baby makes a sound from the living room. Neither of us moves. Every time I think you are about to leave, I say, you do something that makes it impossible to believe you will. Rachel looks at me for a long moment. I owe you something, she says. I have owed it to you for 5 years, and I kept not saying it because saying it meant I had to do something about it, and I did not know if you would want me to. Say it. She looks at me, straight, no armor, nothing between us. I never stopped loving you, she says, not for a single day, not once. The kitchen goes completely silent. I take one step toward her. She does not move back. We stand there in my kitchen with 2 feet of space between us and 5 years of everything we never finished saying sitting in the air, and neither of us reaches across it, because reaching across it means there is no going back and we both know it. Then my phone rings on the counter. Not a text, a call. Dr. Carroll, I pick up. Carroll. Hannah. Her voice is tight. The CEO's full statement went to the DA an hour ago. It is worse than we thought. The altered records go back further than the 14-month gap we identified. They have been running the Tier 1 system for 6 years. 6 years, Hannah. The number of affected patients is not 11. The audit team's current count is 43. I look at Rachel. 43 patients. Rachel's eyes close for exactly 1 second, then open. How many donors total? I relay the question. Dr. Carroll exhales. 21 donor profiles accessed without full individual consent. 17 Tier 1. 4 additional profiles accessed through separate program loopholes we had not identified yet. And the involuntary donor? I ask. Notified today by the DA personally. A pause. She had no idea a child existed. Hannah, she has been living her life completely unaware that somewhere out there a child is biologically connected to her. The DA said her reaction was, Dr. Carroll stops. It was not good. I look at Rachel standing across my kitchen counter. I think about what it felt like 4 days ago in that hospital room when Rachel walked through my door and saw my daughter's eyes for the first time. The way her briefcase hit the floor. The way she stopped breathing. At least Rachel found out. At least she is standing in my kitchen right now. That other woman woke up this morning not knowing. She will go to sleep tonight knowing everything. Thank you, Carol, I say. Call me tomorrow. I hang up and look at Rachel. 6 years, I say. 43 patients, 21 donors. Rachel puts both hands on the counter and looks at the surface for a long moment. It was never just a loophole they stumbled into, she says. This was a system they built deliberately and ran for 6 years and protected at every level. Yes? She looks up at me. It's going to take months to unwind. The DA, the civil suits, the affected families. She pauses. This does not end when the criminal referrals go out. This is just the beginning of a very long process. I know, I say, which means I am not going anywhere, she says. Not because of the case. Not because of the investigation. She looks at me directly. I need you to understand the difference. I look at her for a long moment. Then stay, I say. Just stay, Rachel. She opens her mouth to respond, and I say the thing I have been holding since the moment she walked through my hospital door 3 weeks ago. You almost never found out, I say. Not just because of the wrong corridor. I almost was not at St. Alden at all. Rachel goes still. What do you mean? When I was choosing a facility for my treatment, I had 2 options. St. Alden was one. There was another clinic across the city. Better reviews, easier parking, closer to my apartment. I look at her. I had an appointment booked there. 8 weeks into my pregnancy, I cancelled it and transferred my care to St. Alden instead. Rachel stares at me. Why? I don't know, I say honestly. I sat with both options for 3 days, and something just kept pulling me towards St. Alden, and I could not explain it then, and I still cannot explain it now. I pause. If I had kept that first appointment, I would never have been in room 302 that day. You would have walked through the right corridor, finalised the acquisition, gone back to your office, never known she existed. Rachel does not speak for a long time. She looks at the baby monitor on the counter between us. The soft static sound of the baby breathing, in the next room filling the kitchen. I reach across the counter and put my hand over hers. She looks down at our hands, then up at me. Neither of us says another word. We do not need to. Chapter 10. Hannah's Point of View. 3 Vantage executives are indicted on a Tuesday, and I find out from a news alert while feeding the baby at 6 in the morning. I put my phone down and look at my daughter and say out loud, "It's done." Rachel calls 4 minutes later. "You saw?" "Yes." CEO took a plea. The other 2 are fighting it, but they won't win. The forensic audit findings alone are enough to bury them. A pause. "It's over, Hannah." I look at the baby. "It's over," I repeat. Not because I need to confirm it. Because I need to hear myself say it. "I'm coming over," Rachel says. Rachel, it's 6 in the morning. I know, I'm already in the car. She arrives 7 minutes later with 2 coffees and her black coat still on from the night before, and I do not ask if she slept, because I already know the answer. She sets the coffees on the counter and looks at the baby in my arms, and the expression on her face is the one I have stopped trying to find a name for. 43 families are going to get answers, Rachel says. The civil suits are already being filed. The DA is pushing for full restitution across every affected patient. She picks up her coffee, and the Horizon Initiative records are being subpoenaed. Every donor pulled into Vantage's network through that program is being individually notified. All 21 of them, I say. Yes, including you. I received the formal notification yesterday. She looks at me. But I already knew. I found my own records before the DA did. What happens now for you specifically? I am listed as a cooperating witness. The DA does not need me to testify unless the other 2 executives take this to trial. She picks up her coffee. Which they won't, not with what we have on them. And the acquisition? Officially reassigned to another partner. The firm is pulling out entirely. Vantage will be dismantled through the courts and whatever is left absorbed by the hospital. She looks at me. It's done, Hannah. All of it. Good, I say. Yes, Rachel says. Good. We stand in the kitchen in the early morning quiet and drink our coffees, and the baby falls asleep between one breath and the next, and neither of us says anything for a long time, and it does not feel like silence that needs filling. That is new. That is something we did not have 5 years ago. 2 weeks pass. The legal process moves slowly and loudly, with too many phone calls and too many documents. Rachel handles most of it. Not because I ask her to, because she shows up every morning and opens her laptop, and when I tell her she does not have to, she looks at me like I have said something that does not compute. I know I don't have to, she says every time. That is not why I am here. She stops going back to her own apartment sometime around the end of the second week. Neither of us discusses it. Her charger lives in the kitchen outlet. Her spare jacket hangs on the hook by the front door next to my coat. The baby has learned the sound of her voice and turns toward it when she walks into a room. I notice all of it. I notice the way Rachel reads the baby, the financial news in the morning, in the same serious voice she uses on conference calls, and the baby stares at her like she is the most fascinating thing in the world. I notice the way Rachel laughs at that. A real laugh, short and unguarded. The kind I spent 3 years collecting because it was so rare. I notice the way she looks at me sometimes across the room when she thinks I am not paying attention. I am always paying attention. One night after a long legal call, Rachel falls asleep in the chair beside the baby's crib, still in her clothes, her black coat draped over the arm of the chair beside her. I come in to check on the baby and find them both there. Rachel with every carefully constructed wall she owns completely down. And the baby sleeping in the crib beside her like this is the most natural arrangement in the world. I stand in the doorway for a moment. Then I pick up Rachel's black coat and drape it over her shoulders. She does not wake up. I go back to bed. In the morning, Rachel comes into the kitchen still wearing the coat and pours herself a coffee and does not say a word about it. I do not say a word about it either. We drink our coffees and Rachel opens her laptop and I feed the baby and the morning moves the way mornings have started to move in this apartment. Quietly, easily, like something that has always been this way. 3 days later, Rachel is getting ready to leave for a meeting and looks around the apartment for her coat for a full 2 minutes before she looks at me. I am wearing it. I have been wearing it since yesterday, and I did not think about it consciously, and I do not take it off now. Rachel looks at me in her coat. Something moves in her expression that she lets me see fully without pulling it back. Keep it, she says quietly. I wasn't planning on giving it back, I say. She picks up her bag and her keys and walks to the front door and stops with her hand on the handle. Hannah, she says without turning around. Yes. The baby needs a name. I know. Have you decided? I look down at my daughter in my arms. Dark hair, pale blue eyes. The impossible proof that some things find their way back to each other, regardless of how far apart they get. I was thinking, Ellie, I say. Rachel turns around. Ellie, she repeats. Short for something longer if she wants it when she is older. But Ellie for now. Rachel looks at the baby. At me. At the baby again. And the corner of her mouth moves in the way it only ever moves before 8 in the morning, for one specific reason. Ellie, she says again, softer this time, like she is trying the word out and finding that it fits. She opens the front door, stops one more time. I'll be back by 6, she says. I know, I say. And she leaves, and I stand in my kitchen, in Rachel Morgan's black coat with my daughter in my arms, and the morning light coming through the window above the sink, and I think about wrong doors and right people, and the 5 years that somehow did not manage to finish what we started. Systems fail. People fail. Love sometimes fails too. But some things do not disappear. Some things just wait. Sometimes the future doesn't disappear. Sometimes it waits behind the wrong door. The end. If this story moved you the way it moved me telling it, hit that like button right now. Drop a comment telling me what moment got you the most, and subscribe because the next story is already coming, and you do not want to miss it.